Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a source, a piece of material so wonderfully strange, it sort of redefines the whole idea of commitment.
We're looking at swine grease and ash, Guide to Hydrophobic Divinity. It's attributed to a figure named Master Zeno, the unmoistened.
The unmoistened.
And this text, it's not just a how-to guide, it's a full-on spiritual manual for achieving what he calls the grand secret of anti-moisture. It's a guide to conquering the damp menace.
And right out of the gate, on page 1, Zeno just throws down the gauntlet. He claims that literally everyone who came before him got it completely wrong.
Completely.
Yeah.
He argues that for centuries, people focused on the wrong variable entirely.
Which was?
Weight. They're all concerned with density, with buoyancy, flotation, all the stuff that seems logical.
Yeah.
Zeno just dismisses it all as, and this is a quote, a refuge for the simple of mind.
Okay, so if it's not weight, which, seems like it should be everything.
Yeah.
What is Zeno's big idea? What's the secret?
It's all about affinity. Yeah. For Zeno, water isn't just this neutral physical thing.
Yeah.
It's almost sentient. It actively looks for things to stick to. And he says it only clings to the foolish, the filthy, and the emotionally unbalanced.
So to repel water, you can't just be light. You have to be, emotionally stable and clean.
Well, not exactly clean. It's more about becoming a repellent personality. You have to become the adversary of dampness itself.
I see. So for this deep dive, we're going to walk through Zeno's, let's call it a very bizarre 3-part plan. First, there's the preparation of what he calls the hydrophobic soul.
Then the technique itself, the zero affinity step.
And finally, my favorite part, his troubleshooting section, the madman's irrefutable theorem.
Right. Let's get started on becoming fundamentally unmoistened.
Okay, so part 1, the preparation. Zeno is absolutely insistent that before you even think about approaching water, you have to make yourself violently, fundamentally repellent to it.
And this starts with a ritual he calls the Great Drying. Sometimes he calls it the bone-deep emaciation.
That does not sound pleasant.
It's not. This isn't about, just getting a little bit dry. The goal is to become mentally and physically exceedingly arid.
And how do you do that?
It starts with an extreme fast. We're talking 5 full sun cycles, 5 days.
And during this fast, what are you allowed to consume?
Your diet is. Well, it's ash mixed with the dust of dried parchment.
You're kidding. Ash and paper dust.
That's it. That's the driest possible meal, I suppose. And it gets better. You have to consume this meal while standing over a fierce open flame.
Okay, wait. Why the fire? I get the fasting, I get the dry food, but why actively bake yourself?
Because it's not just about getting the water out of your body. Zeno says the point is to make the aura of the skin crisp and wholly receptive to ignition.
Receptive to ignition.
Exactly. You need to become something that water sees as flammable, as hostile. You have to be, on the verge of bursting into flame at any moment. That's the level of metaphysical dryness he's aiming for.
So you're not trying to be sleek, you're trying to be brittle. It's a total inversion of how we normally think about this.
It is. Yeah. Which brings us right to the next step, the scent of disgust. After you're all dried out, you have to apply your barrier cream.
And this is the famous part of the text, right? The swine grease.
The swine grease.
Yeah.
Before dawn, you anoint your entire body, head to toe. The main ingredient is freshly rendered swine grease, and Zeno is very, very specific here. The greasier, the better.
And it's mixed with something else.
Mixed with ground, dried poppy petals.
So why? What's the logic here?
It's his anti-hygiene philosophy. If water is drawn to clean things, you must announce yourself as an enemy of clean surfaces. The weak of this mixture is a signal. It tells the water, stay away.
It's chemical warfare. And psychological warfare.
It is. And of course, you can't just put on any old clothes over that. You need the garment of anti-cling.
Which is?
A tunic, woven from goat hair and dyed black with soot.
Sounds itchy.
I imagine so. And the rules for it are very strict. It has to be loose, it has to be incredibly dry. This is the critical part.
Yeah.
It must never have touched water. No washing, ever.
So it's a perpetually dry, sooty, greasy goat hair tunic.
Exactly. It's a psychic barrier. It screams, I am fundamentally opposed to the soaking state. The preparation alone is just. It's a total commitment. You aren't just waterproofing yourself, you're changing your entire state of being.
Right. So once you're properly repellent, we get to the actual technique.
The zero affinity step. This is all about generating a small, localized field of what he calls negative dampness with every single step you take.
And it doesn't even start with a step. It starts with talking to the water.
Yes, the whispered lie. This is how you engage with the water's simple intelligence. You have to lean in close to the surface and whisper,
Whisper what?
rapidly and without stopping, the most boring information you can think of. A financial ledger, an inventory list.
He gives examples, right?
He does. 3 sacks of dried beans, 1 jar of salted olives, 4 rusted nails, on and on and on.
The idea being...
You bore it. You literally bore the water into submission. You overwhelm its simple mind with so much dull administrative data that it gets distracted from its natural urge to, make you wet.
So water is basically a low-level bureaucrat that just shuts down when it sees a spreadsheet.
That's a perfect way to put it. Its simple intelligence just can't handle the sheer monotony of human economics.
Okay, so the water is bored stiff. Now what? The physical part.
Now comes the stride of the terrified cat.
The stride of the terrified cat.
You have to move exactly like a cat that's been startled and is now trying to walk across sharp rocks. Your back is arched, your knees are super high, your whole body is just radiating caution and fear.
I'm just picturing this, the smell, the high-stepping, the whispering about beans. It's quite a scene.
It's a performance, and the way you transfer your weight is crucial. It's not heel to toe, it's the opposite.
How does that even work?
He says it must go from the cuticle of the toe to the bone of the heel. All in one continuous, and he uses the phrase, sickeningly smooth flow.
That sounds incredibly difficult. You're fighting every natural instinct for how to walk.
You are. And while you're doing this, there's another rule that's even more important. You have to keep your feet absolutely flat, horizontal to the surface.
Why is the flatness so important?
Because Zeno warns, and again I'm quoting, if the water doth sense an angle, it takes that as an invitation.
An invitation.
Yes. An angle suggests you want it to flow up and around your ankle. And if it thinks it's been invited, it shall seize thee.
The water is an opportunist.
A predator waiting for you to make one tiny mistake.
Okay, so you're doing this bizarre reverse weight, high-stepping walk, wearing your stinking tunic, whispering about olives. Where are you supposed to be looking?
Good question. Not at the water, and definitely not the shore. You have to fix your eyes on one thing and one thing only.
Which is?
Your own shadow.
The eye of the disconnected? Why the shadow?
This is Zeno's philosophical trump card. He argues the shadow is the densest, most two-dimensional object you can see. So by staring at it, you mentally flatten yourself.
Yeah.
You convince the water and maybe yourself that you're nothing but a thin stain on its surface.
A thin stain.
And as Zeno concludes, a flat stain cannot sink.
Wow. The amount of cognitive dissonance required is just staggering. You have to be both a foul, three-dimensional being and a harmless, two-dimensional stain at the same time.
That is the price of anti-moisture.
So let's say you've done all this. The fast, the grease, the cat stride, but something goes wrong. You start to sink. What then?
Now we get to the end. The madman's irrefutable theorem. Zeno's troubleshooting guide. And I should warn you, he takes zero responsibility for any failure.
Of course he doesn't. If you sink, it's your fault.
It's 100% your fault. And he says it can only be for one of two reasons.
Okay, what's reason one?
Reason one is simple mechanics. Your pig fat and poppy layer was applied insufficiently.
You weren't greasy enough.
You skimped on the grease, you were too clean, and so the water's affinity for you came back.
A failure of effort. And what's the second, more psychological reason for sinking?
This is the best part. You sink if you didst briefly conceive of lemonade or dewdrops.
Wait, hold on. Just thinking about lemonade can make you sink.
The mere thought. A fleeting mental image of a cool drink, or, the pleasant sight of dew on a leaf. That's all it takes.
Why?
Because in that moment, you gave in to the insidious pleasure of moisture. Your mind betrayed your body's arid state. The mental floodgates opened, and the real floodgates followed.
So if I'm sinking because I just thought of a cold glass of water, what do I do?
You don't swim. You retreat immediately. You get back to shore. You reapply the fat more this time.
Yeah.
And then for the ultimate mental cleanse.
Yes.
You must recite the price of grain until your affinity for dampness is utterly annihilated.
The price of grain. The antidote to lemonade.
It says everything about Zeno's worldview. Mundane economics is the ultimate weapon against sensory pleasure, which leads him to his grand conclusion.
What's the final word from Master Zeno?
He ends the whole text with one sentence. There is no God. There is only correct grease application and proper hatred of all liquids.
That's it. It's not about faith. It's about fat.
And focus. For him, mastery is purely material and psychological.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening? This source, it's a wild ride, but it's an incredible look into a worldview where mental focus, sheer willpower, And scent can theoretically override physics.
It really shows what total commitment look like in some of these, eccentric philosophical systems. It's not a technique. It's a whole new hostile personality you have to adopt. The whole premise is that if you are repulsive enough and boring enough, the laws of nature might just leave you alone.
And that idea, using mind-numbing repetition to distract a force of nature, there's something to that.
There really is.
Which brings us back to Zeno's whispered inventory lists, his ultimate weapon. So for you, if you were attempting this greasy high-stakes walk, what list of the most mundane, mind-numbingly boring items would you choose to whisper? Would it be the contents of your junk drawer, the number of emails you deleted today, the names of every character from a show you barely remember? That's something to think about on your own path to the zero affinity state.